You already worked on strengthening your instruments to be a good speaker. You worked on befriending your nerves, using your voice in different ways, and have a natural self-expression. But it takes more to have impact. You also need to take into consideration your audience while you prepare. Every audience is different and every moment is unique. So even if you have one presentation and you need to do it, in front of different groups, you will have to adjust it to every unique audience. It is a form of social intelligence to be able to tap into your audience well and understand who they are and what they need and want from you. If you don't find a match with your audience, it's going to be very hard to reach them and to have effect. In my career as a teacher and trainer, I worked with such a variety of audiences. So many different groups, different ages, different professions, politicians, students, high school students, bankers, creative people. And sometimes even groups that are very far from my, living lifestyle and way of thinking. But I always find a common ground. And that's when you can start the journey together. I also didn't find that common ground sometimes, and I can be sure to have no effect there. There was a complete mismatch. And it's your job as a speaker to prevent that mismatch. You are there to serve your audience. Think of how you can serve them best. Take them into consideration. Who are they? Put yourself in their shoes. You may think that public speaking is a one-way direction type of communication, with you being the sender as a speaker and the audience being the receiver. But in fact, it's a circular form of communication. Together you co-create a unique moment. Now there is a universal wish list that probably all humans alive share. We all don't wish to waste our time. We all want to learn something new or hear something interesting. We want to feel or imagine something. And we want to see and meet a real human being, a person. There are some universal human limitations. We are easily bored and we cannot process too much information. We are quite limited in our process capacity. How can you tap into every different audience? Before you start writing your presentation, you can take them into consideration. Who is your audience? How old are they? Are they similar like you or very different from you? What do you have in common? It's important that you make your audience feel heard and understood. It's the same with two people talking. If you feel heard and understood, you are willing to give your attention to the other person as well. It's the same with an audience. So make sure that they feel that you studied them and that you take them very seriously. Also, share what you have in common. We tend to trust and like people more easily when we have things in common, when there are similarities. Even when you are very different from your audience, see where you can find common ground. And also synchronize with your audience. Are they formal or informal, much older, much younger than you? What is their type of speaking? If I have to give a philosophical lecture to a group of 65 plus average age people, I will have to adjust my language. It was a lecture about philosophy and music. So then I don't use a pop song in my presentation, but a classical piece of music. So every audience requires adjustments. How can you tap in? And this may seem like a paradox or a contradiction with our mission to stay authentic. But look at it as having different roles. When you are with your friends, you are different than when you are with your colleagues at work. When you are with your grandparents, you use a different tone than speaking to children. And it's the same with an audience. And when you synchronize them, you make it easier for them to follow you. So studying your audience beforehand will help you to harmonize more easily with them. Tap in to their level, to their way of speaking. How do you dress for the occasion? These things matter. If you want your audience to trust you and to like you and to give attention, you need to take all these things into consideration. Now, having said that, if you want to give your audience a real treat, a real nice sweet candy, see if you can implement some storytelling in your presentation. It doesn't have to be a long fairy tale or a super long anecdote. It could also be a short memory or a vision that you have, or even a metaphor. That's already the trick. Storytelling is the oldest form of information transfer that humans know. For a very long time, the only way of information transfer was telling stories about what was dangerous, about family traditions, about education. So we easily remember stories. And good stories are graphic, so that we can imagine them, so that we can see it with our mind's eye. This makes paying attention effortless. It's effortless listening, in contrast to information that is not visual. For that we need to work, we need to focus and make sure we understand. There are a few rules that you need to apply for good storytelling. First of all, it needs to be a relevant story or a relevant anecdote. So what is the purpose of you sharing this story? Every good story has a certain problem or a struggle or a shock of insight that is the reason why you want to share it. So what is the conflict or struggle in this story that you want to share? And what is the solution? So a good story doesn't only describe a problem or an issue, but also a solution. How will it get better? What is the emotion that is part of this story? That should be very clear and also communicated when you share a story. Then make it visible, meaning make it graphic. Describe what it looks like. Help people imagine your story. Make them a witness of what you saw or what you see in your vision. And an important rule for storytelling, make it very simple. Simplifying may sound very simple, but it's not. It shows that you really worked hard to come to the essence of the message, to the core of what you want to say, and translate it into very simple words, simple sentences. Adding a form of storytelling to your presentation will help people relate to you, activates their imagination, and will make them remember you, because we remember in stories, in images and emotions. Now, storytelling is a bit of a contrast to PowerPoint presentations, which I also shortly want to discuss. You either love it or you hate it. It can strengthen your presentation, but it can also kill your presentation. That's why we need to use it smartly. We need to use it wisely. Personally, I am not a big fan, because I've noticed that it's mainly used in the wrong way. People who are a little bit uncomfortable with public speaking tend to make the PowerPoint presentation the centerpiece of their performance. So they dim the light, they get out of the way, and they basically present to you their slides, as if they are assisting their own slides. And the problem with slides is that they are not a human being. They are not a human being that they can relate to. They don't have emotions that they can, mirror, and there's no emotional energy that gets activated. So the moment you remove yourself from the spotlight and you put your slides in the spotlight, there's not the emotional connection, not the aliveness that we actually crave as an audience. So it's important that we use it only as a visual aid, if needed. One thing that often goes wrong is that we put way too much information on a slide. Information is boring. We cannot process it. And the utterly most worst thing is that people will read what is said on the slides. which is even more boring because you can assume that your audience can read. So they already read it and then you will repeat it. So it's not really refreshing. So basically, you cannot use PowerPoint as your walking stick. It is not your summary of your presentation. You should only use it where it really strengthens your story. Only demonstrate what people really should see. Information is very hard to process. Images are very easy to remember and to process. So if you can, choose graphics, visuals over information. I have a list with do's and don'ts. So for the do's, only use the slides that are really supporting your presentation. So you minimize the amount of information and the amount of slides. Choose visuals over text. Use a very calm and simple layout. Don't make it an entertainment circus. You are the entertainment circus. You are alive, you have emotions, you have facial expressions that are way more interesting to look at than a screen, a flat screen with information. If you want to share more information, things you think are very essential for them to know, you can send it in a document. You can even make extra slides with all that information and share it before or after the presentation. But keep in mind that live communication is not suitable for big amounts of information transfer. We cannot process that. Live communication is perfectly suitable for messages and stories. So some information can be there, but you have to be careful. You cannot overdo it. It won't have effect. And the problem is that when people feel overloaded with information, they will zoom out. They have to work too hard. They don't want to stay with you. They don't want to listen anymore. So the absolute don'ts, let me see. No blocks of information on your slides. Don't do it. Don't use your slides as a complete summary. You should know your material better. You need to prepare better. You shouldn't need that walking stick. Never read from your slides. Don't disconnect. All right? Imagine if I would turn around right now and start looking at something behind me. That's weird. All right? And live, the nonverbal sign is like, bye, I'm disconnecting. I'm on a date with my slides now. Imagine you're on a date and you're only talking to the waiter the whole night. All right? That's a bit the same as talking to your slides while you should be talking to your audience. Then don't fill your slides with too many things. Keep it very calm, not too busy. Just calm font. Don't overdo it. Think of maximum 6 objects per slide. And don't dim the lights too much. Our eyes are attracted to light and movement. So the moment you dim the light and you have this bright big screen shining into the room, people will automatically shift their eyes there, even though it is not very interesting what is there. Okay, so use it well and you will strengthen your presentation. Use it badly and you kill your presentation.